Good evening, officers and other friends from the non-armed forces community. Today evening on Value Talks, we'll have a discussion about Territorial Army, प्रादेशिक सेना. कैसे इसके अंदर ज्वाइन किया जा सकता है, इसके अलग अलग रोल्स क्या हैं, इसमें ज्वाइन करने के बेनिफिट्स क्या हैं और प्रोसीजर्स क्या है. इसके लिए आज हमारे साथ देयर आर टू सीनियर ऑफिसर्स फ्रॉम द टेरिटोरियल आर्मी. The first guest with us today is Colonel Kuljit Singh Jaggi. Sir, Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind.
Colonel Jaggi is a short service commissioned officer who, after having served in the short service, then joined the Territorial Army. To his distinction, Colonel Jaggi has commanded 3 ecological TA battalions, which is a unique and rare honor जो और किसी के पास में अभी तक टीए के अंदर शायद विश्व में नहीं है. Am I right, sir?
Yeah, but that is not by, I'll confess, it's not on merit, it was by chance.
Okay. But nevertheless, sir, I mean, that still there is something which it has. I mean, you have something which no one else has done. Now, I would come to the talk of the day, sir. If I'll request you, अगर आप थोड़ा सा हमें एक शुरुआत में सिर्फ ये बता पाएं कि टेरिटोरियल आर्मी या प्रादेशिक सेना का मेन रीजन क्या है? Why? What are the typical roles and tasks performed by the officers of territorial army, and what is the reason as to why TA was raised?
TA actually is a British concept.
Okay.
And actually during the time of independence, TA was supposed to be the larger chunk of the Indian army. Due to this sudden, attack by Pakistan in 47 and subsequently in 62 and all, this couldn't go through actually. But today TA, the strength which it was first envisaged, we are nowhere near that. Today, our TA strength may be at best 50,000, 50 to 55,000. Compared to army of 1.2 million, we are just 55,000. The basic aim and role of TA was basically to relieve the regular army. In times of operations and all, there'll be rear area securities, as we say. They would be, guarding the VAs and VPs. So TA was actually used for that. And especially after the RR battalions coming up, they sucked in a lot of, force from the regular army. So all this gaps which had to be plugged, TA was being used for that.
Okay, so what are the roles and the tasks which TA performs, sir?
See, roles and tasks, as I told you, it is basically guarding VAs and VPs. Other than that, TA does a lot of ROPs. They are mainly doing ROPs in the Jammu and Kashmir Valley, and only the home and earth units, their debts are being given to RR battalions and the local battalions over there to get the local int and all. Otherwise, per se, TA is only used for static duties. That is, you may be even used for guarding airfields. You may be used for guarding ammunition dumps. You may be used for guarding, any installation that is under construction, like an airfield is being constructed. You can use them for that also. Railway lines have to be laid, places where there's insurgency going on. So TA gets such like tasks.
So basically, there's a lot of field tasks which the TA has to perform. They're mostly deployed in operational areas.
Yes, they are only deployed in operational areas. That is the only thing. Embodiment itself means you either be in J&K or you'll be in the East. I mean, I don't, unless and until an officer is on permanent staff, say he's in a unit as a quartermaster, I don't see him serving in peace. And that's the way it is. I mean, officers do crib, and as we say in the army, it's right for every officer to crib. But that's the way TA is. If you're there in TA, if you ask any average TA officer of the service he's put in, it will be, opposite of the regular army. He would have put, 2/3 of his service in the field and 1/3 in peace.
Okay. Sir, who all can join territorial army? इसको मतलब ये embodiment का concept क्या हुआ, sir?
देखो, as you see in the ad, it's a part-time army. It's a part-time organization. You're a part-time officer. You're known as a part-time officer. However, what happens when you join the TA, they cannot guarantee you full-time service. However, because the situation is such and the deployments are so heavy, they actually need the officers and they welcome officers if they are, doing on a full-time. I'm telling you very frankly, I as a SS officer left in 99 after 10 years in the army, and in 2001 when Op Parakram started, I came back to the TA, and from 2001 to 2019, I didn't go on disembodiment. So if you want to serve, no one stops you, provided you do your job sincerely. And if you got a commitment wherein you got a business to look after and all, yes, there is a provision where you can come for 2 months in a year. And that also can be split up by coming 1 month in the first half, 1 month in the second half, as and when their training and the annual training camps go on for the men. So it is flexible to an extent, but it may not be the way, a candidate envisages कि मैं जब चाहिए मैं आऊंगा और जब चाहिए मैं चला जाऊंगा. वैसा नहीं होता है. It is as per the requirement of the army. They might call you when they need you, and they might tell you, okay, you can now carry on. Vipul.
Right. Sir, who all can join? इसके joining के लिए क्या criteria है? What are the basic joining criteria कि ये join कर सकते हैं, ये लोग नहीं कर सकते? What are those criteria, sir?
कोई क्राइटेरिया नहीं है इसका. You have to be a graduate in any faculty from a recognized university. You have to be gainfully employed if you're a civilian now. And you have to be below the age of 42. You can join till 42. That is the only criteria they have spelled out.
So if someone is a civilian, the criteria is graduate gainfully employed.
Yes.
Gainfully employed means can be working in corporate, self-employed. I mean, how does one say that I'm gainfully employed, sir?
See what happens when you log in or when you fill the form for the TA. They will, if tomorrow I say I'm gainfully employed, I may be self-employed. I may be a teacher. I may be like I was showing myself as a personal trainer. Now they have become a little more strict. They ask you for your IT returns. If you show you're a gainfully employed, you can't say I'm anything and say you can't say I'm a yoga teacher and then nothing after that. You have to show your IT returns. They will ask you your last 1 year, I think 1 year's IT returns. What are your IT returns? How you got your income? And otherwise, if you are from a government organization, they have to if you're employed with someone, you have to provide a NOC, no objection certificate from your employers. Yes, so and so will be relieved for TA duties as and when required by the army. If these conditions can be fulfilled by anyone, yes, he can come.
Okay. And what are the relaxations available to short service commissioned officers, sir?
Short service commissioned officer is the same thing. Tomorrow you leave the army. If you're 42, if you're not crossed the age of 42, you can apply for it. A notification is released by the TA directorate and they invite you. It's called the Army Service Board, ASB, held once in a year. And supposedly the notification for this year is due to be out next month.
Mm-hmm.
Here there's an interview in the TA directorate by a board of officers, the DGTA now. In my time it was the ADG, the DGTA and a few staff officers from the board of officers. They interview you. And the main thing in this short service thing is you have to be, when you got released from the short service, you have to be a Shape 1 officer. You can't be a medical category when you've come out and now you're trying. If you're not Shape 1, you can almost forget it. Vipul.
Sir, is there any relaxation for short service officers in the selection criteria, or is it as in they don't have to write an exam, or is there age?
No exam. Yeah, that relaxation is there. They don't have any exam. They don't have any SSB. Notification will come out. They have to apply for it. They will be given a date for the interview. All short service officers will come on that particular date. All will be interviewed simultaneously. Interview may last for anything between not more than half an hour, I should say.
So if I understand you correctly, sir, between a civilian and a short service officer, the first difference is that a civilian will have to go through the SSB. A short service officer would be directly called for an interview in the TA directorate.
That's right.
Board of officers.
Yeah.
And the limiting criteria is that the short service officer, when he was released from his service, at that time, he or she should have been Shape 1, which brings me to another question. So now with a lot of ladies becoming commissioned officers in the Indian Army, are they also absorbed in Territorial Army, sir?
Ladies, as of now, short service, I have not heard of it, nor have I seen any. But the last PIB which was held, that is for civilians, they have this time spelled out the vacancies also. There are 12 vacancies for male and 1 vacancy for female. So if they are going to take female officers, I think it should be open to them, but it is not yet in force.
Okay. Sir, यहाँ थोड़ा सा मैं आपको एक add something to you, because when I was doing research on TA and inviting officers, there is an Air Force officer, Squad Leader Ruxana Haq. She is the first female Territorial Army officer to have been absorbed in TA, and she has been embodied also.
Wonderful. That's good news to me.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't know the official position, which now I think, as you are sharing, there is a certain proportion in which they are accepting short service officers, wherein there would be some male officers and some lady officers. Probably that depends on the proportion of the officers who are being released from the short service.
And one more thing which I was given to understand, that all short service officers, now it is mentioned on the release order that
Okay.
you are eligible to join the Territorial Army. I think it is being told to them. They must check their release order. They mention it on the release order. This is what one of the SS officers told me now.
Okay, so it's there that if they wish to, I mean, that's as per your understanding, it's written on the release order, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So broadly, what are the benefits to a Territorial Army officer if someone joins the Territorial Army and continues to serve in the Territorial Army as a fully embodied officer and serves the nation with pride and dedication?
You're talking of the benefits to the SS officer, or you're talking across the board?
What if you can help me understand both of them, sir, as two separate categories?
You see, what happens, as you can see, you can join till 42. What actually happens is when your civilian joins TA, this is what my experience is. As a AQ and I was there in Southern Command. You see, the age profile of these candidates is slightly higher than a regular chap. They are coming in their late 20s or early 30s. So what happens, you have to even caution them at times, boy, because with your age you may not qualify for a pensionable service, but still their passions are so high, they are still willing to serve. What happens for a short service officer is, in Navy, the short service officers don't get permanent commission. There's no provision for it. So when I was in the Andaman and Nicobar, I met a lot of naval officers, smart officers, and they said, sir, we can, even if we want to serve the army, I mean, even if we want to continue serving in the Navy, there is no provision. We have to leave after 14 years. So I told them, why don't you join the TA? Why don't you do additional 6 years over there and qualify for your pension? And you won't believe it, during my tenure over there, almost 3 or 4 officers who got released from the Navy, today they are serving in the TA. And they are so thankful, they are now saying, sir, we'll qualify for a pension. I mean, that's something today everyone knows what's the, importance of getting a pension. So that is the benefit a short service officer will get. And what happens in the case of a short service officer is, if he is done 14 years, taking if he's commissioned at 22, 23, 24 also, assuming he does 14 years, he's still 38. That means from 38 to 54, he's got 16 years. In 16 years, he has to just qualify for 6 years to be eligible for pension, which shouldn't be difficult, I think.
Okay. So let me understand what you have said, sir, and correct me where I've understood it wrong. Say there is a short service officer who has put in anything from 10 to 14 years.
Yes.
And can be from any of the arms, could be, I mean, or rather any of the services, could be Air Force, Army, Navy.
Yes.
He or she rejoins the Territorial Army, gets embodied for a total period of 6 years, which can be continuous, which can be in breaks. That officer then becomes eligible for a armed forces pension. Am I correct in understanding this, sir?
No, technically it is not 10 years. I said if someone has done his full short service quota of 14 years, you have to aggregate 20. I gave you a figure 14 because Navy officers serve till 14 years. So you have to balance 6. Now, if somebody in the army, now short service in the army is 10 years, extendable to 14.
Right.
Now, say someone leaves after 10, then he has to aggregate another 10 years. That qualifying service for pension still remains 20 years. Whether you do 14 and 6, whether you do 10 and 10, whether you do 13 and 7, but you have to have physical service of 20 years.
And this 10 and 10 or 14 and 6 can be done even in breaks. One doesn't need to be continuously embodied. Is that what you are saying, sir?
Yes. Now, if his residual service, say somebody, like you take my case,
Mhm.
I was commissioned at 24, I was out at 34. I
Mhm.
was in the civil for 3 years. I came back
Mhm.
after 3 years. So I was out back in at 37. So that means from 37 to 54, I had 17 years with me. So in
In
this
which you had
17
to
years,
complete.
I had to clock in 10 years to qualify for my pension.
Wow. And if it is someone who is coming from the civil, then they will have to complete 20 years of full embodiment.
Yes, they will have to do 20 years of full physical service, as we say, embodiment. However, for them, what happens is if someone says, I am not interested in the pension part, I'm only interested in wearing the uniform and it's my passion. Say he comes for 2 months in a year, his 2 months will be counted as 1 year for promotions. So, say if somebody has to become a lieutenant colonel in 15 years and he's commissioned in 2001, and if he comes for the from 2001 to 2015, he's come only for 30 months actually. But automatically in 2015, he qualifies to become a lieutenant colonel, subject to having passed his part B and part D. But in TA, you got A, B, C, D, all four. That is because they have not got any formal training in the military academies.
So the people who are coming from the civilian background, sir, what is their procedure for joining Territorial Army? They have to undergo a written exam and then SSB, or do they directly go for SSB?
They will first undergo a written exam. It will be on a Sunday on the second half of the year, and they'll have to give two papers. After that, all those who qualify in the written exam, there's something known as the PIB, that is a preliminary interview board, which the respective TA group headquarters are going to conduct an interview for them. There they only see whether this person now is good in writtens, he has qualified the writtens. They just see the basics, personality, and the bearing of a person. That interview is 5 or 10 minutes interview, in which they just basically gauge a chap. Yes, is he fit to go for the SSB or no? So there is one more, should I say, tier of defense when he has to go. He has to give that interview also. There are a lot of candidates who don't make it there. He's done so well in the written, but ultimately they find that his expression, his way of expressing a point is not up to the mark. So he's not recommended from there. So other, like we give a CDSC, we get a call for SSB. Whether you're selected, not selected is a different thing. But here you can get stumped even at the TA group headquarter level also. So that way, getting into the TA is much tougher than getting into the regular army, because you can understand last year's exam, they have a total of 13 vacancies for full India. I mean, that is not even one per state. That is the level of competition over there.
And how many candidates for 13 vacancies, sir?
See, whatever I interacted with candidates and I saw their roll numbers, and I being, a resident of Pune, I was told the Southern Command itself had 48,000 candidates. Now, how many came and appeared for the exam is anybody's guess. But even if you take it, that even if 1/3 of them came, even if 16,000, 17,000 came, and if this was the average of the other command, Southern Command being the largest, they have the maximum number of candidates. But even if I take it that I was in the Northern Command also, now awareness about TA is so much that everyone wants to join the TA. They at least they give an attempt. So you can take it safely about 40 to 50,000 candidates appear. And from that, you are taking just 11, 12. I mean, you can just work out the, ratio of what is the level of competition.
Yeah, it's extremely tough. Extremely tough.
Extremely tough. I had one candidate coming to me when I was the AQ in Southern Command. He said, sir, I have cleared the IAS preliminary exam, but I couldn't clear TA exam. I said, just too bad. I mean, this is the level of the competition over there.
Okay. Now, sir, let's keep the pension part aside for the time being. And let us say there is someone who gets embodied and doesn't qualify for pension because of the fact that that individual has not put in the 20 years continuous service.
Okay.
But other than the pension, what are the benefits available to a Territorial Army officer? Say if he or she embodies for that 2 months, which is counted as 1 year, does gain the rank also and continues to embody every year. and fulfills the basic minimum criteria of being a territorial army officer, what are the other privileges or perks which this individual will get? Understood that pension is not admissible. Other than that,
whatever the emoluments are there, he will get the TA. Like in the army, we have the AGIF. In TA, you have the TAGIF. He will get that. He will get his gratuity. He will get his canteen services. For that, I think if a man puts in, even, if he comes for 20 years, he may come for 2 months also. There's no problem. 2 into 20, 40 months. He would have had 40 months only embodied service. But he will be entitled for CSD facilities. If he happens to pay for the ECHS, maybe he'll get medical facilities.
And gets to use the rank in the civil service.
Rank has nothing to do with those 2 months or this. I told you, if you become a captain in 4 years, if he's come for 4 years, even for 2 months, he may have put in just 8 months of service. But if he has cleared his promotion exams, he will become a major, whatever. That has no bearing whether you've come for 2 months or somebody who's regular. That is taken from your date of commission. That is your date of seniority.
So a civilian can wear the pride of the rank even with 2 months of service and having passed the eligible, having gained the eligibility of having passed the promotional exams.
Yes, why not? He's a commissioned officer finally.
Okay. And alongside the other benefits such as a PhD benefit and territorial group insurance and having served for a certain time, then a gratuity, and if one agrees to, then ECHS. So these are the other additional benefits.
These are the additional benefits because ECHS mein kya hota hai? You see, now in short service officers are there who have just served for 5 years. Now I have one case of my postmate only. He left after 5 years. So now he said, I want to avail the ECHS. So they said, okay, whatever this deduction we do for the ECHS, that is 1 lakh odd rupees, you pay that and you'll be eligible. So now he's opted for it. If you get the ex-serviceman status for the minimum qualifying service, you are eligible for all these things.
So like now, when we had started the discussion, you said that the Territorial Army officers are mostly deployed in the field areas wherein they are doing tasks which a regular army officer does.
Yes.
I have a tricky question for you now. Is there a possibility of Territorial Army officers moving into regular army? Because I know that regular army officers do come and command Territorial Army battalions and groups, etc. But is there a reverse possibility also?
Okay. First thing, till now, all infantry battalions other than eco battalions are all commanded by regular army officers only. 2. Only the ecological task force are commanded by TA cadre officers. All other units, which are departmental units, even the railway engineer regiments which were there, now I think they've disbanded 5, there's only 1 left. Their commanding officer is the DRM of that station. He's a railway chap. So infantry battalions, TAs are all commanded by regular army officers. No TA cadre officer commands a regular battalion. TA cadre officers only command eco task forces. Secondly, your question was, do TA guys, TA officers or TA personnel, do they go into regular? There is every year when you fill a form, you see there are 3 things you have to tick. Out of the 3 you have to tick, you can tick all 3. One is, I am willing to serve on a regular basis. They call it the Rule 33. I am willing for secondment to the regular army. Before of Parakram, officers of TA were going into regular units for a span of 2 to 3 years. Only when Op Parakram came into force, these officers were reverted back, and that practice has stopped since. So
now it is not a regular or a customary practice that the Territorial Army officers, they go and join the regular army, or even for that 2-3 year stint. It's not there now.
Yeah, the secondment, we call it the secondment to the regular army. I think now it is not happening. However, if you're an officer in the TA, you will be doing all the courses, you will be doing YOs, you will be doing JC, you will be doing platoon weapons, all the courses that a regular army officer is eligible for. The TA officers do go for those courses.
All right. Sir, before I open the house for questions from the audience, my one last question, sir, which is something very close to you and I would say almost your specialty. What could you give us a brief on what is the ecological task force TA battalions, and how are they different from the regular territorial armies?
You see, here it is very paradoxical. Like I told you, all the TA battalions, infantry battalions are commanded by a regular army officer. What happens in Eco TA? All the personnel in Eco TA are ex-servicemen. Here you have ex-servicemen, the men are all from regular army. The commanding officer is a TA cadre officer. Whereas in a TA unit, the men are all the TA personnel commanded by a regular officer. However, to join the ecological task force, the Jawans have to be pensionable, they have to be shape one, and they're all ex-servicemen. All are ex-servicemen. You cannot take a civilian as a Jawan into the ecological task force.
And what do they do, sir?
As the word says, ecology. They are basically, first they were 8 battalions. They were only into plantation. They were into reforestation. After that, the 9th and the 10th battalion, that is the 137 TA, it was raised for cleaning the Ganga. And they are doing an extremely good job, and they have been applauded by everyone. So they are known as the Ganga cleaning unit. Otherwise, all ecological battalions are just used for reforestation, afforestation that is happening everywhere, and spreading awareness about the importance of your forests, the degraded forests. They are not funded by the MOD. These units are funded either by the state forest departments or they are funded by the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change.
So as of now, we have 6 ecological TA battalions, which are officered and commanded by the territorial cadre officers, and the constabulary or the Jawans are all ex-servicemen, shape one in receipt of service pension.
10 battalions.
10 battalions.
10
One is
battalions
Ganga cleaning, and 9 are battalions which are again into afforestation of.
That's right. From 127 to 135, there is no 131. Then 136 and 137, that is the Gurkha rifles. They have been used they are based at Allahabad. And they are used for Ganga cleaning.
Awesome. Sir, the information which you gave has been extremely helpful and relevant.
Gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down.